Hey everybody, hope you're doing amazing today. In this video I want to share with you part 6 of how I was able to buy 50 houses in 52 weeks at just 22 years old. Now, in the previous 5 videos I shared with you several things, including how I was able to do creative finance deals when banks wouldn't even look at me. So if you missed that one, go back and look at the video prior to this, part 5. About a 10 or 12 minute video about how I bought them subject to owner financing, and I delved really into the owner financing because that's how I done a large majority of these. So in this video I want to cover how I dealt with that influx of properties. Now, of course, once you learn how to structure deals and be creative, I've done wholesale, I still do. Done some fix and flips, still do a few of those, but by far the creative finance or the owner financing is my favorite way to buy. There's several reasons why. Number one, we can pay more for the property, therefore netting the seller the most, therefore making a more attractive offer. And number two, it doesn't require money or much money other than some closing costs, sometimes a little bit of upfront. But that's normally minimal and commonly zero, other than some closing costs, depending on what state you're in, what those are. In Indiana, there's no transfer tax, so typically our closings there are around $1,000. Kentucky, there's some closing tax, so they're a little bit higher. Again, you go to Florida or some of those states, there's some transfer tax that's a little bit more. But other than some closing costs, maybe a few bucks to the seller, it's a way to be able to buy properties and expand your portfolio quickly with unbelievable growth. So how I begin to handle that influx of properties without having to hire a property manager is I lease option them. All right? I love sharing about lease option. It's by far one of my favorite ways to be able to sell houses and lease houses. Number one, it takes away your headaches for the most part of being a landlord. Your tenant who has the option to buy the property is responsible for the maintenance and repairs, which is exciting to me as a landlord because that's the least attractive part about being a landlord is toilets and tenants and trash, they say. And so you get to remove the majority of problems. Number two is there's 3 paydays on every deal. When our tenant moves in to buy the property, our tenant buyer, we call them, on a lease option, they give us a non-refundable option deposit. Now, this is commonly 5, 10, 15, or even 20% of the purchase price, depending on the house, the area, the price range, and all the variables. But at the end of the day, it's not uncommon for us to get 10, 15, or even 20% of the purchase price of the house up on the tenant buyer moving in. So that's number one. And believe me, when a tenant is giving you a chunk of money like that to lease option the house with the goal of buying it, they're a much different mindset than a typical tenant who's just moving in looking for a place to rent. So it weeds out a lot of the issues. Now, second thing is the in-between, the monthly cash flow. You net more every month, and across what I do, I net tremendously more every month on the lease options because I'm not responsible for the maintenance and repairs. Tenant buyer's goal is to buy the house, therefore they are responsible for the maintenance and repairs. So now you've got more cash flow every month. And then last but not least is we're able to get premium price for the house because we are helping someone get into a home that wouldn't otherwise be able to qualify through a traditional bank. So let's say I got a house that's worth $300,000 and the person wants to get a home loan from a bank, and depending on the type of loan, they need anywhere from 3 to 20% down. But they can't get a loan because they went through a divorce or new on the job, need another year of tax returns, or whatever the case may be. Medical issues, all sorts of things that have come up in people's lives. So here we are able to lease option them the house. They are able to put money up front, pay a monthly fee, live in a beautiful home that otherwise they would have to just rent somewhere and wait. They get to move into the home and enjoy the home while they're waiting to get qualified. And then when they go down to the bank, in whatever timeline that will be, 1 year, 2 years, whatever that is that you and them work out, then they, of course, pay you off at top price and you get your third payday. So front end, middle end, back end. Now, also with you being the landlord, the seller, and you may say, well, hey, sounds like a great idea, but I want to keep my properties. Well, you don't have a guarantee they're going to buy, number one. When you're a tenant buyer, you put them in, you set them up to succeed. But just like people buy houses sometimes and then default and then get foreclosed on, it's not unusual that a tenant buyer will move in, put the non-refundable option deposit down, pay you a monthly rental payment, and then life or circumstance change and they decide to move along or something comes up and they end up not cashing you out. So in those cases, you of course would sell the property again. Again, the goal is to set your tenant buyer up for success. And I don't mind doing it knowing that it's possible they're going to cash me out because I'm getting top price for the property and we have our system set up bringing us more properties in. So if we sell one, we're simply going to transfer that to another property. And so it just frees up capital. And let me ask you this. If you've bought a house on owner financing for $200,000 and you have paid it down for 1, 2, or 3 years while your tenant buyer was living there, and you sold it to them at a premium price, let's say $249, your debt's paying down and you only owe $180, they gave you, let's say $25,000 at move-in, and so if they still owe you and you walk away with a $50,000 profit, nothing wrong with that. So you've helped the buyer to win big because your buyer is getting their new home they wanted. You've won because you've netted way more off the property than you would have by just a traditional flip. And everybody has won. And the seller, of course, that you bought the house from wins because they get paid off. So it's a win-win-win. Now, obviously, as you know, life happens and not always does everything go as planned. And so that is why, as entrepreneurs, we must be creative. Because if and when something does go wrong, then we work to fix it. We work to figure out something that works for everybody to continue creating that win-win-win. And at the end of the day, makes you and your company a profit. All right, so that was by far the only thing that kept my sanity. If I would have been renting these things out, I would have outgrown myself, had to find a property manager or something quick, because there's no way I could have rented all of these and been able to keep up. So lease optioning them, giving me money on the front end, tenant who want to buy the home and take care of them like it's their own, and then profits on the back end when they cash you out later. So lease option is by far my favorite way to fill these things and enjoy the cash flow for whatever time it may be. And again, it's not necessary to back it down to a year or 2 years. You can give them longer. You can work it out. In fact, we have some tenant buyers who've been in and asked for extensions and are in their several years in, 5 or 6 years in. So just be creative and remember that you can grow the portfolio. If you lease option them with your tenant buyers, it will keep a lot of those headaches down and you still get a lot of the same benefits and even better in some cases. So that is a little more about how I bought 50 houses in 52 weeks at just 22 years old. If you enjoyed that, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next video. Keep up the good work, my friend.